I'm Alex.
And I'm Teddy.
And I'm Spencer.
And we are
the Button Mappers.
Hey, the Button Mappers.
Hey everybody, welcome to Donkey Kong Month, the month of Donkey Kong.
We're not doing Donkey Kong Month.
I'm here with my
this
DK mug.
This isn't Donkey Kong.
Spencer, will you do the honors?
DK. Donkey Kong. He's the craziest ape that ever did song.
That's good. I have to add it to you. Unfortunately, those type of beautiful lyrics were not present on the console we're talking about today. Special guest SNESmapper, what console are we talking about?
Hey guys, thank you so much for having me here. It's a special episode for me. I have to, talk about the Super Nintendo. It's on my user handle, and I'm very excited. And thanks for the invite.
Oh, does that what that stands for?
What did you think it was?
I thought it was super nice, educated student. He did it when he was still a student.
Yeah.
I thought it was Super Nintendo, but silly me. Anyways, welcome to the show. Pleasure having you back.
Thank you, guys.
We are here, in fact, today not talking about Donkey Kong, although some Donkey Kong may come up. We are talking about the Super Nintendo. This is our intellectual discourse, all about the console and what we know and love and you can expect from it. Alex, what else might the viewers love?
Loving to know that it's not Donkey Kong Month. And also, if you want to hear me rant about that, join us over in the Discord, and I'll tell you why it's not Donkey Kong Month. Also, we are on Apple Podcast and Spotify.
Thank you.
Where it's also not Donkey Kong Month. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Okay, cool. So with these console discourses, we like to kick it off with a little bit of history, a little bit of personal history. What is your personal history with the Super Nintendo? Bruno, would you do the honors?
Sure thing. Mine is a little bit of a special, I guess, story, different than usual, because I grew up in South America, born and raised in Paraguay. So it was an interesting place to be, because, back then, games were, release dates were not, obviously, the games were being delayed because they had to be imported from North America and things like that. So none of my friends had the Super Nintendo when it came out in 91, I believe. But my first exposure was my older brother had a Japanese classmate. And one time he invited us to watch movies in his house. So we went over there, and his dad used to travel back and forth, from South America to Japan for whatever, business reasons and whatnot. So one of the things that he brought back from Japan to South America was a Super Famicom, not a Super Nintendo, a Super Famicom. And that was my first, I guess, it was in 1991. And the first time that I saw a next-gen system, because up until then it was just the NES, 8-bit systems, and I was floored when I first played. I only played one game. It was Super Mario World, and my older brother and his friends, they watched the movie, and I was in a different room just playing the Super Famicom, and I was enamored by it. That was a turning point for me, because up until that point, I enjoyed playing the NES with my friends and whatnot, but the Super Nintendo, or Famicom in this case, it really converted me into a gamer, if you will. And I just fell in love with Super Mario World. The colors, when you're a kid, it just has it had a special meaning. The colors, the soundtrack, the gameplay. It was like I was in gaming nirvana back then, and ever since, I haven't looked back. Gaming is my main hobby, and I owe it to the Super Nintendo, or Famicom in this case. So a lot of nostalgic memories. And it wasn't until, that was in 91, and it wasn't until 1994 when I first got my own Super Nintendo. My parents could not afford it. One disadvantage of being a gamer back then in South America was that both consoles and games were super expensive, like around $100 for a new game, for example. And of course, the The income there is much lower than in the U.S. So you really had to save up, and getting games back then was a very special occasion, for your birthday or Christmas, and that's about it. So it wasn't until '94 that I got my first Super Nintendo system, bundled with the Super Mario World 2 controllers and Super Metroid. That was my first 2 games. So a pretty good way to start. It was a late start, but I was hooked from that point on to the system.
I have a couple questions, Bruno.
Mm-hmm.
How old were you at that time?
So in '91, this is gonna tell my age right here, but I think in '91 I was 6 years old. So yeah, I was already
Okay.
exposed to the NES up until that point, even though I didn't own one, but my neighbors and friends had one, so I would play Duck Hunt and Super Mario Brothers and games like that. But yeah, I was 6 years old, I think, when I first played that Super Famicom, and then just fell in love with it.
That means we started around the same time. And also, you said South America. What country, if you don't mind?
Paraguay.
Paraguay.
Paraguay. Now, does that equate... So I'm looking at the release dates of the console, and this is in, I think, Brazil? BR? Is that Brazil?
Yeah, BR is Brazil, yeah.
That says it came out on August 30th, 1993. So would that
Whoa.
basically... So you said 94, right, is when you got it?
Yes, but yeah, the system was available before then, even in Brazil, and Leo can probably chime in because he's from Brazil. But typically in South America, we had everything delayed by a couple months. That date may be like the official, quote unquote, official date. I know Brazil has some pretty strict custom rules, and them being a bigger country, they have their own official licensed Nintendo offices in there, and sometimes that was maybe the official date. But what back then, and Leo can tell you this, a lot of people from Brazil, what they would do is they would go to Paraguay, because in Paraguay everything was cheaper than in Brazil. Like Brazil has this crazy taxes on imports. Like if you buy a console, obviously you have to pay like this extra fees and taxes. And same thing with games. So people would come to Paraguay and buy their games and systems from there, and then go back to Brazil. So Leo and I always joke about that.
Excellent. So it probably got imported many, many times over before it officially released in Brazil.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But
okay.
Yeah, if I had to guess, it was out probably a couple months after the North American release, and I don't know when that was. I think it was in '91 or
August 23rd, 1991. Yeah.
So yeah.
Wow, what a story.
Yeah.
You guys really had to fight for your games. That's excellent.
Yeah. Conversely, I just want to add something. They had, and it's really weird, and I wish I had a little bit more time to look this up, but they had pirated games. So you didn't necessarily have to buy the original cartridges. They would sell these quote unquote pirated games, but they would work just fine, and they were like half the cost of a official Nintendo cartridge or whatever. So we had alternatives for playing it in a cheaper way, and that just became the norm on the next generation with the PS1. Piracy in South America for those games was like out of this world.
Wow.
Like games were so cheap. Like I'm talking about like PS1 games were like $5. So no one would buy official games. So that I'm sure hurt Sony in terms of revenue. But yeah, it's just a piracy heaven down there in South America. Back in the '90s.
That's so cool.
What a tale. Yeah, I know like the Master System has been really popular over there, which is interesting because the Master System is not popular over here.
That was popular only, as far as I'm concerned, in Brazil. Like Brazil, for whatever reason, was Sega country, but Paraguay, Argentina, Chile, most of the other countries were Nintendo land.
I should have clarified by there I meant Brazil, but I understand that you're from Paraguay. But very cool. Spencer?
So I was about his age, Bruno's age. I would think I got it for my 5th birthday. My parents got it for me. I'm sure they regretted that. because I have a long history of my dad not liking that. But they got it for me for my birthday, and I'm a twin, so I had to share it with my brother. And I got way more into it than he did. And yeah, we had Super Mario World, and that was it for the longest time. We couldn't even put it in our own room; we were too little. So we had to go to another room and play it. And then eventually we coaxed our parents into letting us move it in there. And we would rent games from Blockbuster. Anybody remember those guys? And then we would play. Let's see. Our friend gave my sister's boyfriend once dumped games on us, which was like the biggest blessing for us, and gave us Zelda: A Link to the Past. All through no. A couple other games, and we ended up collecting the Star Wars games because we were big Star Wars fans, and loved that console. That was the console I grew up on. So that's my story. Not as exciting as Bruno's. I'm sorry.
Did you rent a lot?
Oh my god! Like every month we would get to rent one game, and so we'd pick and choose little things. And I think that's where I ended up getting Final Fantasy 4, 2 over here. And we got Super Mario RPG. So early instances of playing RPGs and having no idea what I was doing, and just like swearing them off for a while because like I couldn't figure it out. I remember playing Super Mario RPG, and again I'm a twin, and so we'd play it. I'd play it, and I was like, my brother's like, when can I play? I was like, when I die. And then we would just be like jumping around, and I was playing for like 3 hours.
Well, that's probably why you hated the console.
Yeah, it's like
it wasn't as into it as you.
I can't
You were
even play.
the douchey brother.
Absolutely. No, it was a cool console. I loved it.
Excellent. Alex, what are your memories with Donkey Kong?
I got my Super Nintendo of summer of 1999.
Oh, we have
Well,
Malta here.
No, I was kidding. No. So this is actually the first console we're doing a discourse for that's older than I am. Yeehaw! I was born '94. I'm a little baby. So I grew up with the PlayStation 1 and N64 whenever I was a child. But I do have a story about the Super Nintendo. So I used to have a neighbor that lived next door. I think she was about 15 whenever I was about, I don't know, like 5 or 6, like somewhere around there. And she used to babysit me a lot. I would go over there and play her Super Nintendo. She had Super Mario World and DK Country. I played those games all the fucking time. At some point around either 99 or 2000, she just decided to give me that stuff. So my Super Nintendo that I have now, along with my Mario World and Country, are those very same copies that I played whenever I was very young. Of course, whenever you're a kid, you don't care if it's an old game. You're like, oh, free games? Yeah, heck yeah, because games are games.
Yeah.
And from then, from there on, I didn't, I don't think retro collecting was a thing really back then. People just kind of sold what they had, bought the new stuff. But I was able to get A Link to the Past fairly soon after that. I got Street Fighter 2 Turbo. I got a few crappy movie games like The Jungle Book and We're Back, a Dinosaur Story. Played those because it's all I had, so I gotta play them. And from then on, I started to play games here or there, but they weren't really like a common occurrence because by that point the Xbox and PS2 had just come out and stuff. So I've spent so much time playing DK Country though. Like that is such an important part of my childhood, and yeah, I'm just happy I have that original Super Nintendo. That's I don't really play it that much anymore because I have other ways to play those games, but I really don't want to part ways with it for that reason.
Yeah, you are a Super Country fan. You know that game like the back of your hand.
I sure do.
Not as good as I am though. If you'd see that map out. hey Teddy, what's your story with the Super Nintendo?
Well, it's funny you should ask. I don't have one. I didn't grow up with the Super Nintendo. I've never owned a physical Super Nintendo. The closest I have is an SNES Mini. But my history with the Super Nintendo was in this kind of, I don't know, longing for or desire to play it. It was always a kind of item of oh my gosh, that thing sounds so cool. People who are older than me used to talk about the Super Nintendo being the coolest thing. And I had an N64, and I loved my 64 for sure. I love my experiences with it, but I didn't really know about the Super Nintendo experience. I didn't know about the Metroid experience. I didn't know about a lot of that. The closest I came in my formative years was playing the Game Boy Advance and playing a couple Super Nintendo ports to it. I had played A Link to the Past on the Game Boy Advance. I played Donkey Kong Land. I found a manual for that. I might have played Country on the GBA. I don't remember. But I was always nostalgic for that style of gameplay because it was something kind of foreign to me. And it's actually been a real treasure to experience in the modern era compared to what we've seen gaming look like for the past 20 years. It's just such a strikingly different approach to games. And I know we see this kind of 2D platformer revival nowadays, but really the Super Nintendo is where it hits hardest. And I've really seen a lot of the games from that era hold up strikingly well.
I think there's a I mean, kind of like hitting back to like what you said. I think a lot of people that I've talked to that are into retro games, like this era of like the 16-bit consoles were like, it was it. Like, I think a lot of people fell off after that. Moved on. Didn't want like the 3D games. I think a lot of people look back at this era being like, this is like the pinnacle of old school gaming.
Oh yeah, I was thinking to myself before we came on today. When you get to the N64 and the GameCube era and so on and so forth with, the first party Nintendo games, it becomes debatable. Now, I tend to stand on the side of like, I really like Zelda 3D, I like Mario 3D, but it's when you can get into that argumentative state. You can't argue against Kirby Superstar. You can't argue against, you could argue against like Star Fox SNES, I guess, but like most people love it. You can't argue against Super Castlevania 4. You can argue against Castlevania 64 heavily.
I will.
We know. The examples are endless. And the Super Nintendo, I think the only ones that you could say maybe it got better over the years, especially definitively, is like F-Zero and probably the Mario Kart series. But otherwise, really iconic games on the console.
It's probably Spencer. It's probably a big era for you because it's RPGs.
Nope.
No, really? No. I mean,
nope.
Really?
You'd think so. No, I didn't get into RPGs until well into the almost PS2 era.
Well, it does house your favorite RPG, so you can at least have that.
No. It's a huge RPG boom. It's not as big as PS1, but it's still a big RPG. Like you can see the steps. Looking back, I love the RPGs, but at the time, no. It was any RPG I played on there was completely incidental and immediately forgotten.
Console Kev put it well. I don't know if it was on our archive for Chrono Trigger or if it was for like a Twitch stream he was doing, but he said like from PS1 era up, that's when the RPGs just became like, that's when it really became bountiful. With the Super Nintendo, it's like you could hold them all in the palm of your hand, and the RPGs that people mention are the same ones.
Yeah.
Nothing against them. I think there are some really good Super Nintendo style RPGs, but as far as on that system, yeah, I think compared to like Genesis, TurboGrafx, you're going Super Nintendo, but it's predictable. When you ask somebody what RPG should I play on this console, it's gonna be Earthbound, Super Mario RPG, Breath of Fire, Chrono Trigger, Final Fantasy 3.
If you're in Japan,
Yeah,
that changes a little bit.
It's funny because growing up, a lot of my friends did not care for RPGs, myself included. I remember renting, I think Chrono Trigger might have been my first RPG that I played on the system. But it was a turn-based RPG. I don't remember because I played it for just a couple minutes and I was like, I'm not enjoying this. Like, the turn-based concept, I could never wrap my head around it because I was like, okay, I'm hitting the enemy and now he's attacking me. That concept just was so foreign to me. Like, I was so used to the action, real-time, like Zelda: Link to the Past, for example, where if you're a really good player, you won't ever get hit by an enemy, right? You can, dodge your way around and hit him and, defeat enemies, whatever. So turn-based RPGs was such a foreign concept, and almost, in my circle of friends at least, it was almost uncool to play RPGs on the Super Nintendo, which, now that I'm older, I do want to go back and explore some of those games. And it's just funny because I think the Super Nintendo has some pretty heavy hitters, when it comes to RPGs. But growing up, we thought it was uncool. We much rather play, platformers or sports games or, Metroidvania games and things like that.
And back then it's much harder to research what other games are on Super Nintendo. Now I can look at a thing and see every game on the Switch and be like, oh, I know exactly what I want to play. Back then it's like whatever you had. I can tell you, and I forgot these 2 games because I just kind of blocked them out of my memory. But I also had 2 more games I forgot to mention, and I've spent an embarrassing amount of time with them. First one was Pac-Man 2: The New Adventures. I would not recommend playing that game. It's not great. It kind of sucks. But I spent a lot of time playing that game because I didn't have many games. And I also played the SNES version of Wing Commander, which I also would not recommend.
I played that
but
too.
it's just like that's what I had, so that's what I had to play.
There's something to be said about being a poor gamer. Like when you don't have any money and like you got to work to get the one game. Like I used to treasure the games and like explore them in and out and be like, I'm gonna tear this fucking game apart. And now it's like, oh, this took me like a couple, like 2 hours to get this game like of work or whatever. I'll try it. 15 minutes in, not grabbing me. Let's see what else they got.
Yeah.
It's tangential though. Like I think nowadays, like even if you are like a broke gamer, I mean, most people have access to the phones and the laptops and can just do whatever. I mean, I did play a little bit on a PC back in the day, like freetoplaygames.org or whatever. But I think that like the value of that cartridge meant so much more.
Mhm.
Nowadays, I don't really think the kids have that same kind of value to what they own.
I think they do. Well, because like the most popular games are free. So that concept still holds true, and they play the shit out of those games. I'm telling you, they will tear Fortnite apart and play every little bit of it. They'll play Minecraft until their fingers bleed. They'll learn every little thing about it. Like my nephew will talk to me about that game, like it's like a Bible. Like I should know everything too. Like, that's the funny part with talking to kids. They assume you know everything that they're talking about. But they'll be like, I took down the dragon, and we built a nice fortress. Added the custom skin to it. I'm just so impressed that they're so into it. Like they're more into those games than I think I've been into any game ever. It's super impressive.
Well, that's just part of being a kid. I used to do that shit too. I used to go to mom and be like, "Look, mom, look what I did in this game." And she's like, "Come look for a minute." She'd be like, "I don't care." Isn't it so cool? I was washing the dishes. Can I go wash the dishes?
I guess what I mean is like we develop these nostalgic attractions to our consoles and to our games, and I don't know if the kids can do that with a PC or a phone. I guess they really love their phones and PCs, so what do I know? But
that's a tough one to decide because the consoles, you can like put a flag on it, right? And be like the Super Nintendo era.
This is my original console.
Yeah. What are they gonna say? Like, this is my iPhone 8S? Like
this is my original iPhone 8S.
Played the shit out of Fortnite on this.
I had so much time playing Flappy Bird on this thing.
Yeah, I want to see those.
But back to the Super Nintendo. You guys want to maybe go around the room and maybe list like a game each, or something? Or
Yeah, how about I had this next? How about a favorite Super Nintendo moment or a not favorite?
Okay, let's go first.
I guess.
I can tell you
will.
a horrible one. Oh, okay, go
Yeah,
ahead.
start with that because I have to think for a little bit.
Oh, it's like the opposite of what he asked for. Good.
No, he said a bad one.
Oh, did he? Okay.
Any just memorable moment. It could be a good memory or a bad
okay.
memory.
I get you.
I think I've said this on something before, but like I was mentioning earlier, my dad was not a fan of video games, and I was playing, and this is where I learned not to pick third-party controllers because they'll always fuck you over. I was using a third-party Super Nintendo controller, and the buttons started sticking, and I was playing Donkey Kong Country 2, and I couldn't. It was in the so when we. I don't want to spoil anything. Anyway, so the Donkey Kong Country 2, there's a part with honey. and there's like
Yeah.
bees and stuff, and you have to jump up the
beehive,
thing.
yeah.
Well, in that part, my controller was sticking, so I couldn't do the jumping stuff right, and I was crying about it. And my dad came in from another room, grabbed the controller, and smashed it in half, and then walked away.
Oh my god.
Which didn't make me stop crying. It certainly had the other effect.
Oh,
but
man.
that would be a really depressing moment. I'm glad that he did it, but I wish his tact was a little bit smarter.
I think your controller may have been more advanced because maybe it was like getting this, like some of that honey down into the button. You see?
Yeah,
Mm.
it's getting the effect of the honey.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, as a kid, you don't even think about the technology behind it. You're like, it just doesn't work on honey levels. Like, I don't know what's going on with this controller.
It's the honey levels. Damn it.
Yeah. So there's my depressing story.
Oh,
I guess I'll liven the mood. Oddly enough, Donkey Kong Country 2. I played it with my roommate a couple of years ago, and we would pass the controller like every time we died. He ended up taking down K. Rool. He knew the game a little better than me, but it was my first time clearing the game, and it was fun to experience like a one-player game that way, especially like nowadays. We don't really do that a lot. We kind of moved from this era of like local play a game together. It still exists, but it's not the norm. And so it was fun to be able to do that with somebody around my age.
I would definitely have to say Donkey Kong Country 2. I'm just kidding. 1, actually. Because
Not 3?
No, well, you know what? You know what? I could say 3 for a minute. I've had a copy of 3 all my life. It doesn't save. So I've played the first half of that game so many times. But Country 1, I can remember my first time actually like fully completing that game, because the last like world of that game gets pretty brutal, and whenever you're a kid, you know, it can be hard. So I remember my first time actually beating K. Rool, being like, oh my god, and then from then on it was just like a regular thing. Like I knew like all the secrets, I knew, you know, everything about that game, so I just got to the point to where like there for a while I could roll my way through that game in like under an hour, and I was so proud of that. I don't know if I could right now because I'm a little rusty, but that was a big moment for me. It was like beating K. Rool, getting like the fake credits, and then like the second boss fight. I was like,
Yeah, for me, something that I guess I forgot to mention, even though I grew up in South America, I would come every year to the U.S. for 2 months. That was my reward for getting good grades in school. My mom's sister, she's been living here in Florida for a very, very long time, so I would visit her every year as a kid. I have a lot of fond memories of going to Toys R Us. And that was me taking advantage because, in South America, game prices were very, very expensive, and games were cheaper here, especially older games. So, every year I would come here and go to Toys R Us, and I don't know if you guys remember, if it was they had these stickers or pamphlets that you had to take out and then take it to the front desk, and they would give you the game there and buy them. And so a lot of fond memories of old school, Toys R Us, purchasing games in there, and also renting games from Blockbuster, which is, gone. I think both are gone, Toys R Us and Blockbuster. So definitely a lot of, good memories of, in mid 90s, just shopping Super Nintendo games. And I do have another story, Donkey Kong Country 2 related, because that game came out. That game came out when I was visiting my aunt here in Florida. It was around the holiday season, and I remember she had a Super Nintendo, so she gifted that to me for Christmas of '95. And then I remember the neighbors were around my age, so they would come every day to play that game. And I remember one time it was like raining, and they were just waiting for me outside. We went out for like grocery shopping with my aunt, and then came back, and they were just waiting outside there to play Donkey Kong Country 2 with me. So I have a lot of fond memories of playing that with the neighbors.
And that's the thing too, is that like I think like my personal taste, it's no secret that I would highly prefer the Genesis over the Super Nintendo, but the Spencer, I'm not even saying anything. I just said that one thing. Don't even make that face at me. This was just making a stupid fucking face. Now he's sideways. But when it comes to like the first party games or just games that really stick out on Super Nintendo, like the DK Country trilogy, like I have all of my original cartridges for that, for that series because it means so much to me, and that would lead me to become a big Rareware fan, and I still have my Mario World, I still have my Link to the Past, like those games made such a big impact,
God, I love Donkey Kong Month. It's what a special.
It's not Donkey Kong Month.
Speaking of Donkey Kong, what do you guys think are the best games on the Super Nintendo? I was thinking maybe 3 per person. I will begin.
If you say Donkey Kong, you're out.
DKC 1.
DKC 2.
Not DKC. No, DKC 1. Donkey Kong Country. Super Metroid, and I'm gonna go Earthbound.
Interesting.
That's such a oof. Yeah,
Those
go. If
are
somebody
good
else has a
games.
list, you can go for it.
Okay. I'm gonna say Donkey Kong Country 1. No shock there. Fuck, Teddy. Why'd you have to say yours first? Fucking Super Metroid, I guess. The second one's a toss-up. You know what? I'm gonna say probably Mega Man X, but I was gonna say Star Fox 2. Am I allowed to say Star Fox 2? Because it's not. Because
No.
like it didn't actually come out.
I wouldn't do that.
But it did come out. Just not.
Yeah.
Not on the
I'll
Super
give it to
Nintendo.
Came out on a Super Nintendo Mini. I mean,
Came out as a ROM.
yeah, I mean it was like because that game's fantastic, but it didn't actually release. So I won't say that. I'll say Mega Man X.
Now that you mentioned Star Fox 2, I was so excited because I never played that game. I know it was available to play via emulators and whatnot throughout the years, but one of the most exciting things for me was I think it was included in a Super Nintendo Mini, but also they released it on the Nintendo Switch online service. So I was so excited to finally play that game because I'm a huge fan of the original Star Fox and I'm a huge fan of the Super Nintendo as a system, obviously. And I played it and I just could not get into it, man. I don't know. It's just.
Are you
too
just
old.
trying to hurt me?
But I was so hurt, man, because I wanted to enjoy it, and I appreciate the fact that they had that free range mode type of ideas included in the game, but I could not get into it, so I was pretty bummed out. I only played it for a few minutes through the Switch, but disappointed that I did not enjoy the game, unfortunately.
I would love to get a ROM, like I don't know, like a
They have
pirated version. Yeah, like a cartridge version of that, because that's honestly probably one of my favorite Star Fox games. I really enjoyed that.
Bruno, what were your top 3?
Mine, I have to put Super Mario World at number 1. That game is responsible for me being a gamer, I guess. Number 2, easy, Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. Very nostalgic game for me. Number 3, man, it's so hard, man, because there's so many games I want to mention, but it's probably Super Metroid. But since you guys mentioned it a lot, I'm gonna throw a third-party game and put Street Fighter 2 in there, because that was a childhood favorite of mine.
Who's your fighter?
Honda.
Ooh.
Honda and Ken. Yep.
I like Dulcium. I like to stretch my limbs out.
Honda was, just smash that X button, and do the.
I'm glad you mentioned Link to the Past, because if you were doing top 5, that would have been on mine for sure. That game is directly responsible for me not liking Ocarina of Time, because it was my favorite, my first Zelda game, and it kind of established my taste for Zelda games.
Alex joining the Ocarina of Time remap confirmed.
I'll do it, but you won't like it.
That's funny. I have the same thing as Alex, but I have the exact opposite opinion.
Oh, that's cool.
Anyway, I guess that's our dynamic. I think the top 3 to me would have to be Super Mario World, A Link to the Past, and Super Metroid. That always seems to stand out as the big 3. So
No one said Kirby's Avalanche.
no, they did not. If it was personal, that list would be very
golf
different.
No, Dream Course is a golf game.
Yeah.
I love that game, by the way.
It is a good game. I suck at it, but
I do too. It was fun.
Superstar is great. I mean, Dreamland 3 is great.
But I think those 3 games are like the pillars of Super Nintendo.
Nobody mentioned Yoshi's Island, which I also love Yoshi's Island. Like, that
is
game's
a good one.
fantastic.
Star Fox 1 is really damn good. Like that would be top 5 for me.
Yeah,
Star
that's
Fox-
a great game.
Teddy, I think it's very bold you picked Earthbound. I think you're going to get a lot of hate.
I also picked
You know, I
Earthbound.
debated putting Chrono Trigger over it, but I mean, just from what I've experienced of Earthbound, I really like it.
Mm.
I want to pick Super Tennis.
Might have to put that in the archive.
Throw that in the archive.
Super Tennis? Super Tennis?
Yeah, Super
in the
Tennis.
archive? Oh, okay.
RPG mode.
Speaking of tennis, let's volley our way to the next topic. SNES music. What are some of you guys' favorite
it.
soundtracks?
Without talking about country, because I'm just going to talk
Video
about
games.
country again.
Doo-doo-doo. Doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo.
No, dude, Country 2 has the better soundtrack.
David Wise, man.
Ugh. Sticker Brush Symphony is like in my heart always.
Yep, that song, man, triggers nostalgic memories immediately, man.
You guys gotta fully play Ukulele and the Impossible Layer. The soundtrack is a love letter to the countries 1 and 2. You
I
guys
played
will
the
love
first
that.
one, and I thought the soundtrack was decent, and I think David Wise was part of the
No,
first
that was
one.
Yeah,
I think
but the
Grant
second
Kirkhope
one-
worked on that one too. I think.
It's like I'll forward you a song that is a remix of what is it? Sticker
Brush Symphony.
Brush Symphony.
Okay.
Yeah, I've played a little bit of Impossible Layer, and it was good music. So
Favorite soundtracks for me, I do really like the Earthbound soundtrack. The Super Mario World jams are really good. Even that Game Over theme. Da 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 da.
plus Bruno can do the boss doors.
Give somebody some Taco Bell. I think anybody can do those boss doors.
So it's a plus. Boss Doors and Taco Bell.
I'm gonna say something controversial. I think Kirby Superstar has better music than Mario World.
Go.
Fight me. I just said it. What do you want me to go?
Oh, just like give your best
Where am
Kirby
I-
impression.
I don't know. It's Kirby.
That's Smash Brothers.
That's Kirby.
I heard that song on the N64.
Because it's fucking Kirby. That's why.
They played that on the Dreamland stage.
From Kirby.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I see
Bruno,
that
you got any standout music?
Yeah, it's gotta be number one, A Link to the Past. Kakariko Village theme, that was the first time, and the OG a Dark World theme, that was my cell phone ringer, whatever, ringtone for a while. So
Just
yeah.
the opening scroll whenever the Triforce flies across the screen goes.
Oh, man, that sound.
Oh.
Then the intro music, when you're selecting the file. Man, yeah, that nothing can top that for me.
I just don't like how the dungeons all have the same track.
Hmm. But it's good.
They do indeed.
Fair enough.
I guess I'll be that guy. Chrono Trigger.
What?
And Earthbound. Earthbound has, I don't know if it's better music, but it's certainly creative. They do so many different things with that. Final Fantasy VI has good music, but I mean, it has a whole opera scene that you gotta check out. So good RPG music. That's my input.
Teddy mentioned Super Castlevania 4. That game's got a great soundtrack. Mega Man X has a fantastic soundtrack. Fuck, man.
Street
Star
Fighter
Fox
2.
Super Nintendo has a super good soundtrack.
Yeah. And Street Fighter 2.
Yep, Street Fighter 2, man. I remember I used to go to the options menu, and they had their own like soundtrack. You could listen to the songs, and I would listen to like the Ken stage, Ryu stage, and great soundtrack. And Killer Instinct too. I remember getting buying the game, and it came with the Killer Cuts CD soundtrack.
Yeah.
With all man, loved that, man.
I shared the theme for I think it was Glacius on Facebook like a month ago. It was super awesome.
Yeah, that song is amazing. Yeah.
Yoshi's Island, fantastic music, very bubbly, very colorful. It's just fun. That's the one thing that I can say about the Super Nintendo for sure is that I don't know if I've played too many games that just had fucking awful soundtracks. I mean, maybe kids games or something, but who's playing licensed kids games now? Who's playing Home Improvement on the Super Nintendo? Nobody.
I played Ninja Turtles.
How was the music?
I don't recall. I'm not a big music guy.
Okay.
It's probably shitty though.
How were the turtles?
Shitty. No, the Tournament Fighter was not good. I did play Turtles in Time, which was a lot better. I don't remember.
Spencer went in thinking he was playing a turtle simulator. Like, oh boy, I get to see these teenage turtles at the zoo.
Oh boy, I get to be a turtle.
Oh no, they're fighting each other.
I get to play as Franklin.
Everybody's favorite turtle.
Yeah, Franklin.
And I would also like to comment on the Super Nintendo controller, if you guys want to talk about that for a second. It's pretty fucking nice. It's a good controller. It's got the 4 buttons. It's got the D-pad. It's got the shoulder buttons. That's basically what PlayStation would do for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I think the biggest innovation nowadays, it's commonplace, but the trigger buttons, I think that was the first controller to have the L and R buttons, and you just added those 2 buttons in a really nice position. In my opinion, much better than the 6 button controller for that Sega came out later with the Genesis.
Ah, shut up.
No, you're right, Bruno. Keep going.
And then they had the concave and convex kind of shape on the buttons, the Y and X and the B and A, that kind of gave you that tactile feedback, when you were playing games. Very easy to just know where were you, without looking at the controller. So it was a decent controller, or a pretty good controller for back in the day.
I was trying to be nice, but you don't badmouth the 6-button Genesis pad, okay?
It was made for aliens.
Made for fighting games.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, sure.
Alien fighting games.
Alien Fighter. 63. So there was
I'd buy that.
My only issue with this Super Nintendo controller is the start and select
Carnage.
buttons. The start and select.
Sorry.
The start and select.
I mentioned
buttons.
an alien fighting game. Go ahead, one more time.
My only
Cosmic Carnage, hidden gem time.
My only issue with the Super Nintendo controller is the start and select buttons. I never liked how they were mushy. They didn't have a click to them.
Yeah, you had to hit them pretty hard sometimes in order for them to work.
Put your thumbnail down in there.
Yeah, so that was my only sticking point.
Sometimes my dog would confuse the Super Nintendo controller as a bone, and that could be really annoying. By the way, I don't have a dog, but
or
I like
a
the
Super
controller.
Nintendo.
That's true. Good one.
Right.
Alex, want to do a little Metal Cheeses interlude?
Hey everybody, Metal Cheeses here, and talk to you about the Super Game Boy on the Super Nintendo. I actually had that thing. I think it was pretty fucking cool when I was a kid.
Me too. Only way to play Pokemon.
Yeah, I mean, play Pokemon. I played other stuff on there. Some of it is stupid shit. I played the Game Boy version of Mortal Kombat, which is fucking terrible. Don't do that. But whatever. I had it, so I was like, well, we'll put a new plate on the TV, and it's fucking playing a 2-button fighting game. That doesn't work. I think it was cool. So that's my Metal Cheese's hidden gem.
Okay,
Teddy's waiting for the segment to pick up. I hate to inform him that it is already finished.
Yeah, that's it.
That was it.
Metal Cheeses here.
Why are you giving me a full segment for Metal Cheeses?
The point is to introduce it as hidden gems. Like, hey guys, what hidden gems do you bring to the table? You know how Metal Jesus brings guests? Well, you're Metal Cheeses.
I don't know. Are there any that you guys can think of off the top of your head?
I have one. It was based on a cartoon from the early to mid 90s that I didn't really watch. Biker Mice from Mars, I think it was called.
Oh my god.
But the Super Nintendo game was this isometric racing game, but it was very well made, controlled really well. I think it was developed by Konami, I think. And it was kind of like a Mario Kart-esque type of game where you had items that you can shoot the opponents, and it was really well done. You know, great graphics, isometric view, which was kind of unique, and I enjoyed it a lot. Me and my older brother play that game, you know, a ton. So that'll be my choice.
See, my issue with the Super Nintendo is that all the games that I've played outside of like maybe like a couple Capcom, Konami, whatever games, you know, and like you know the big N is like all like kids licensed crap. So I don't honestly like. I don't explore the Super Nintendo library beyond the more recognizable stuff for that reason. You know, that's probably why I prefer the Genesis, because there are some more obscure shit on the Genesis that's good. And Super Nintendo, like, what am I gonna play? Fucking, you know, am I gonna play the Jungle Book? I don't think so.
One game I really enjoyed playing with my roommate was Super Bomberman. I don't really hear a lot of people talk about that, and it's a fun one. It's a fun kind of multiplayer-esque experience. I think there might be some kind of adventure mode. I don't remember.
There is.
But
It's very
also
good.
for
Yeah, there
nice. As a kind of archive tribute here, I played Dragon Quest 1 through 3, the SNES remakes, and I think there's a cart that allows you to play 1 through 6, the Super Nintendo versions, and that's important because 5 and 6 never actually came out in the West for the console. So
how are you playing them?
legally,
Through legal means.
let me just put my eye patch down.
Okay, boys and girls. 2 of them.
Let me tell you a story.
And I believe they're both... No, one's Capcom, the other one's Konami.
Hold on, I had to sit crisscross applesauce.
The Capcom one is Goof Troop.
Goof Troop's fucking awesome, dude.
It, especially if you're a twin, co-op means something. And it's a co-op adventure game. Isometric, where you're playing as Goofy and Max. And if you can get somebody to play it with, it's freaking phenomenal.
Dude, no joke. I've been playing my Raspberry Pi, and I was playing that game with my mom, and we were having a blast playing through that game.
Oh my god.
And I love, and I was having so much fun playing it. I was playing as Goofy, and she would fuck up and be like, "Fucking Christ, Max, come on, you son of a bitch!" Just like really upset Goofy. I don't know, because you have that move where you can like put your hands up.
Yeah.
So like he looks like he just like, "Fuck it, I'm over this, Max."
If you ever get the chance to play that co-op, they haven't made a game like that I can recall in a long time, and it's really good. They need to do something with that. Style.
Zelda Four Swords part of the co-op.
Yeah.
I can think of.
Yeah, it's kind of in that vein. I'm surprised they haven't made something like that because it's so fun. And then Buster Bust Loose is a Tiny Toons game that's really good.
Mm-hmm.
That game is amazing.
I have that one. Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you guys a funny story. If you guys weren't able, or were this is so bad. If you guys were gonna tell me that you couldn't do Chrono Trigger, I was going to default to that game and make you play that for the map.
I have it. I've played it.
Yep. So I was waiting. That's why I said let me know, and I was gonna pull the trigger on Tiny Toons Buster Bust Loose.
Dude, I would have done that. You
I
should
know
have
you
done
would.
that.
That game is it's amazing, actually. Is that the one that had the football stage?
Yep, and the Star Wars ending.
And the Star Wars ending. I love that.
I always
game.
got to like the second area, or like whatever is like a Western theme area, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always died there because I sucked because I was a kid.
Yeah. Well, that's the first
No.
game I ever bought myself and completed, so it holds
Oh,
a special
cool.
place in my heart.
Yeah, that game is incredible.
I only played I think the Genesis version of Tiny Toons, if that's even, or maybe I'm misremembering it, but I really loved that game, and I
That
think it
one's-
was,
That one's different, but it's still good.
yeah. So I'm sure I would love it.
Another kind of like hidden gem platformer. It's that I enjoyed a lot is Aero the Acrobat. It was developed by Sunsoft, and kind of a sad story because I remember, you know, I got my Super Nintendo with Super Metroid, and then back then, you know, trading in was very common. So I traded in Super Metroid for a Link to the Past, and then I beat A Link to the Past, and I traded it in for Aero the Acrobat. But it's actually a very good platformer. You know, obviously nowadays, you know, it doesn't hold the same value as first-party Nintendo titles, but it was a very fun platformer that surprised me.
You want to bring up Bubsy? I'm just kidding. No, I will also say Sparkster, but fuck, that game's expensive. So, never mind.
I've seen footage. I'd just rather play Rocket Knight.
I mean, it's a sequel, and what's weird is that the Sparkster on the Super Nintendo and the Sparkster on Genesis share the same name and the same box art, completely different games. Like, I think the one on Super Nintendo plays more closely to the original Rocket Knight, and then the one on Genesis is kind of different.
It looks just like it, but like a reduced version. The Genesis one is just so impressive.
Yeah. So, but it's still cool. I mean, it's still a good, like, exclusive Super Nintendo platformer. So
Cool.
What about?
Oh no, go ahead.
I was gonna say, what about any stinker games that that you guys?
Pac-Man 2: The New Adventure. Who wanted to play a game where you tell Pac-Man you don't control Pac-Man, you vaguely guide Pac-Man. You say, "Hey Pac-Man, will you look over there and like get that thing of milk?" And Pac-Man goes, I'm gonna fucking piss off this bull instead," and he gets fucking kicked in the head, and you die. That's basically the game. Is like you trying to influence Pac-Man. Sometimes it's clever because it's like sometimes you have to like set up traps and like kind of like avoid things for him. So like you have to like hit it like use your slingshot to like hit a skateboard to get it out of the way, and then like use this and drop this, and he'll interact with it. But sometimes the puzzles make no sense at all. And Pac-Man is a fucking asshole. Like, there's a part where like this farmer gets mad if you walk through his farm. But then there's like a thing of hay up above his head, and if you shoot the hay, it falls on him. It's a lot of hay. He's probably dead. And Pac-Man just kind of looks at him and snickers, and then keeps walking. I'm like, Pac-Man, that man is dead.
You tried to get me to play that game. I played it for like 15 minutes before I was getting my hair cut. And I was like, there's no way I'm playing
It sucks, doesn't it?
This is horrible. Yeah.
It's like one of those games that like I know it sucks, but I like it because I played it so much as a kid. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I never played that, and I don't think I want to.
Let's keep it that way.
There was a tank game I played on there that was just miserable, but I guess it was impressive. It was trying to go for a 3D tank simulator, but it was boring as hell. And then Wing Commander was not good.
I've just known to stay away from a couple by reputation. My experience with the console is really limited because, I mean, the first time I really got to play Super Nintendo unabashed was with the Mini. You know, I had some, Game Boy Advance games, but that was it to that point. When I started trying Donkey Kong Country 3, it was just not the same coming fresh off of Country 1 and 2. The music sucks.
Whoa!
The beginning, it's pretty bad.
Everything else sucks, but the music
It's
does not
farty.
suck.
It's like Bowser's Backdoor farty.
I don't know what game you played.
Bowser's Back
Donkey
Door.
Kong Country 3. Bowser's Backdoor. But Alex always takes the bag, so we know that from Super Mario World.
Very true.
And I don't know. So another game I couldn't get into was there's like a Contra game. It was just I was playing by myself. It was too hard. So.
Oh, Contra 3?
I think so.
Yeah, for me, I guess I took advantage of visiting my aunt here in Florida every year. When I was living in South America. So in the mid '90s, I was a huge fan of the Orlando Magic team. That's probably my favorite NBA team of all time. And Shaq Fu came at around that time, so I remember renting that from Blockbuster. And the game was bad. But I kept telling myself, it can't be bad. I love Shaquille O'Neal because he was back then, in the Orlando Magic. So I was trying to force myself to enjoy the game, but it was pretty bad. But it was just funny, experiencing that, live back then.
Oh yeah.
And then also Rise of the Robots was a game that I knew it was bad. It got bad reviews, but it was one of the most graphically impressive games. So I remember just renting that from Blockbuster just to experience, the graphical, nature of the game. That was also another stinker that I played. And another one that I know you guys brought this up before in your different episodes of the Button Mappers. I own this game. I still own it. Pink Panther Goes to Hollywood. I know you guys have an ongoing joke, but I bought that game. I don't know why. I think it was super cheap. I went to Toys R Us. That game was dirt cheap, and that was a horrible platformer. But I do have to say, one thing that I'm, I guess, proud, and I don't know if it was just my cartridge, but if you push the B button on the second player controller, it would activate a debug mode where you could float or move your character freely around the screen.
Whoa.
Don't ask me how me and my older brother figured that out. I think we just pressed B randomly one time, and that was the only way we managed to beat the game, because that game was just awful. Like the controls were hard, the physics were terrible, and it was just a very hard game. Horrible like hit detection and all that. So it's one of those things that I have so many fond memories of actually discovering that, pushing the B button on the second controller activated like a debug mode. And I remember trying that on emulators, because in emulators you can kind of set up a second controller, and it didn't work. So I don't know if it was just my cartridge, or maybe you have to have the physical version to activate it. But that was something that I thought it was pretty funny.
That's
It's
interesting.
fascinating. I've never put that cartridge in my console, but we have joked about it so much. I still own it.
Oh! You still have that copy?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So, in the modern day, nowadays, what is your personal best way to experience the Super Nintendo? What would you, I guess, advise others based on your experience?
I always go for accessibility, and I think the easiest, maybe not the best way, but the easiest is just a Nintendo Switch online service. I know the selection is obviously super limited. It doesn't give you access to all the games, obviously, but it's a good way for a new gamer to get their feet wet on the Super Nintendo library. I mean, most of the heavy hitters are in there. Obviously, emulation is another easy way to get into the older games. But I do prefer to support developers and companies, and I don't mind paying the $20 a year to play the both the NES and the SNES Nintendo Switch online service, or whatever it's called.
Silence.
Well,
You're curt.
no, the Switch is the most fun way to do it. When all else fails, you run to that computer and you download that shit. That's what I do. All of it. Honestly, most of it is emulation for me at this point. Yeah.
I mean, and I can't disagree there. My Switch and my Raspberry Pi are probably my two ways of playing SNES games. But I will offer this though, is that if you really want to go out there and buy the cartridges and stuff, I would recommend maybe going for a third-party console option. Like I have the Retron 5. You can get other consoles by Retron, or or other companies that make these third-party HDMI enabled consoles that kind of give you a fun way to re-experience the cartridges on like a modern television. So I think that could work if you want to get into buying and collecting old SNES games.
One of the things I love the most about, I only did it for a year. Like I had the online service on the Switch, and it's $20 for the year. I mean, you compare that to like PlayStation. I mean, you're getting by scot-free. You get a decent catalog of pretty much the best of SNES games. So it's limited, but I mean, to be able to play Super Metroid, Donkey Kong Country, Super Mario World, Yoshi's Island.
They don't have Earthbound on there, do they?
1, 2.
Not yet.
No, but I'm getting there. I did that, and then I stopped supporting it. And then any game that I've really wanted to go back and replay, I've just bought from a virtual console on either the new 3DS or the Wii U. Both consoles have Earthbound, and they also have Mother Beginnings.
Yeah.
I think only on the Wii U, but that's my preferred way to go. But definitely there's a couple games, if they're not accessible and you just can't get them, why not fucking emulate? I love the SNES Mini for that too. You can there's a way to easily bring ROMs onto the thing. So I don't really use my SNES Mini that way, but I did have Dragon Quest 1 and 2 on there. So
That's one thing that I wish Nintendo would take a little bit more seriously, the virtual console. I just want them to have just put all the damn games out there, and we'll buy them. But most importantly, I want them to have a linked service where, because I bought a ton of virtual console games on my Wii, back in the day, and I don't have, well, I do have access to them, but I remember I had to transfer them to my Wii U, or something like that.
No,
know,
you
all
had to
the-
pay $1, right? You had to.
Yeah, you had to pay something, and that I as of recently, I'm trying to avoid buying digital games on my on Nintendo systems until they sort their accounts and services. Because ideally, you shouldn't be able, or you shouldn't buy the same games, over and over each generation. So
Yeah.
up until they have a good solution where if you buy, Super Mario World, you should get the license and be able to re-download that game for every, upcoming system or generation. There's no excuse. I mean, these are older games that run on fairly simple emulators. So I'll be more than glad to rebuy all my virtual console games that I bought on the Wii, but Nintendo has to reassure me that it'll be a license that you will be able to play on the Switch 2 and Switch 3 or whatever their upcoming systems will be called.
You know who's having that same problem? The only people that have gotten this right is Microsoft.
Yes.
Sony's having this problem.
Yes, that's a huge topic right now with the PS3 and PSP and the Vita
How
stores
hard is
closing
that?
down.
How hard
Huh?
is that? Just put a
They're not
PS1
closing anymore, okay? They're not closing anymore.
For now.
Just put a PS1 emulator on the PS5. I'm pretty sure it can handle
No, it's impossible.
Or you could take the Terry solution and go with GOG.
Yes, Steam.
Get Chrono Cross on
Give you
GOG.
games.
It's complicated, man. I know the PS3 was an outlier. It has a very specific architecture, the cell technology or whatever. But at least, the PlayStation Now service, for example, where you can stream games. I mean, there's no excuse. Come on, Sony, just put all your damn games, PS3 games, in there. I'm so scared because the PS3 is my biggest collection, physical collection. But I'm down to just one a PS3. I've owned like 3 or 4 units, and they all surely have, crapped out. So I'm on my last PS3 Slim right now. So I'm a little bit scared. I think I'm going to play a couple PS3 games later this year. Some of the exclusive ones that I know won't be coming back, or hopefully they do in the future. But I think props to Microsoft. I think they're the ones handling the backwards games very, very well.
Yeah.
Bruno and his PS3. How long will it last? Let's start the countdown.
On the PS3 Intellectual Discourse, if it's still around.
How is Microsoft getting it right? What are they doing?
Like a lot of the Xbox One, no, not Xbox One, the original Xbox games are playable on the Xbox One and also playable on the Xbox Series X and S. Most of the 360 games are playable on the Xbox One and the Series X and S. So you can play.
A lot of them are downloadable too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they're downloadable.
But did they fix the download problem that you're having? Like where you can easily re-access ones that you've bought previously on different systems?
Yeah, I mean, if you bought something on the 360 digitally, you still have it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right? It's still take it. And what he's talking about, for example, is that the Xbox One and Series X don't exactly play the games. But if I have a copy of, say, Knights of the Old Republic, and I pop it into my Xbox One, it'll read the disc, tell that I have the disc and the license, and it'll download a version of that game for me to my console.
Mm.
So it's pretty fucking smart.
Yeah, that actually saves discs in the long run, so that's pretty good. Knowing like my experience with these PS1 games right now, it's just I'm not having a good time trying to replay.
You basically just use the disc as a key, and like you have to keep it into play, but it's not playing off the disc; it's playing like a downloaded version.
Cool.
It's definitely a dilemma, man, and I'm so scared because you can say, okay, I have physical games, I can always play them if I have the original system. But for example, my PSP, the battery crapped out, so sure I can always buy a battery on eBay or whatever, but it scares me. What if my 3DS craps out? Those batteries, they're at one point they're gonna crap out, or have that bulge problem where the batteries just kind of like explode or something. So I'm so scared, because I have a lot of 3DS games, I have a lot of Vita games, so that's why I kind of enjoy the Game Boy Advance, for example, because all you need is AA batteries and you're good to go. Those systems can last for a lifetime, but anything that's battery operated, it's a problem.
Sega Game Gear confirmed.
You better squint your eyes for the Game Gear Micro.
Cool. I did have kind of that bloodthirsty SNES 16-bit question, but I think we could skip that. We could save that for a community question or something.
What is it?
We'll save it. I don't want to cut throats.
The
right
answer
now.
is Super Nintendo. Next question.
The answer is whatever Spencer says, but the opposite.
The regular Nintendo. Right. So
That's not the opposite.
my question
That's not the
is-
opposite.
I could see that.
It's
Okay,
super or it's regular. It's
That's
one or
not the
other.
opposite. That's not the opposite.
I accept that.
Well, I mean, there's either
burger,
Superman or there's
a hamburger
there's man.
and then a deluxe cheeseburger are not the opposite.
What's the opposite of cheeseburger?
I don't know, like a taco or something. A pizza, maybe?
Bruno, can you confirm?
No.
I feel like the
not.
genesis of this question has created controversy. So let's just move on to the next one.
The graphics are really turbo for me, so I'm gonna,
Yeah, let's just skip it.
I'm gonna Mega Drive our way on to the closing statements. What guys? What are your closing statements about the Super Nintendo?
I
What's
stand
its
before
relevance?
you.
What's its legacy? You have a volunteer standing.
I couldn't do it. Spencer laughed. I was trying to go all in.
For Donkey Kong Month. Go ahead, Alex.
It's not Donkey Kong Month.
Right.
I don't know. Super Nintendo's pretty cool. That's all I got.
The Super Nintendo, to me, is the pinnacle of what people call retro. It's if everyone says they like the retro style, to me, they're often referring to the NES, but they really mean the Super Nintendo because it looks a little crisper. And they mastered the home console side-scrolling 16-bit look. The Game Boy Advance, you could argue, did it better, but it wasn't a home console. It was a handheld, and it didn't have the same kind of appeal. So the Super Nintendo is where it was the main stage, retro look, and I think they got it perfect as they could, and then obviously ushered in the transition to 3D, where we kind of started over. So,
And the Genesis, we know, did it better, but we're going to ignore that today.
I really like the Super Nintendo. I think it's not a system I grew up with, so my nostalgia isn't there in the sense of the games, but with the characters, it definitely is. And I think the games based around those characters are really damn good. It's more than a historical time marker. You know, I've said that about Dragon Quest 1 through 3. I think they're interesting, but they're like historical showpieces. No, these are really damn good games, and they're kind of timeless in a sense. I really have loved going back and investigating where it all began and just the minds behind these projects. And so I think we've proven it here on the Button Mappers. We've done like 4 Super Nintendo map outs to this point, and it's only increasing. So I love the system. Basically what it represents and the library attached to it. Bruno, you get the last word.
Sure, yeah, I agree with Spencer. I think it's the pinnacle of retro gaming, and obviously for me, it's nostalgia trip. I have, I guess, unbiased or very biased opinion, because of my, memories of the system with friends and classmates, and traveling to the U.S., Toys R Us, Blockbuster, and South America, saving money to get those games. But it's a part of my childhood, and I have a lot of fond memories. But I think when you look at it from a unbiased point of view, I think it's undeniable that it has a extremely strong library, revolutionary games. The Donkey Kong Country games, the graphics were amazing. Killer Instinct, the FX chip, with the Star Fox game, Stunt Racer. It's an incredible system, and one that definitely helped Nintendo stand out in the 1990s.
Doesn't have Streets of Rage. Doesn't have Streets of Rage.
Well said, Bruno. That will conclude us for Donkey Kong Month. Thank you for joining. Oh, and what's your favorite Donkey Kong character?
I think I'll stick with DK, the original. Donkey Kong Country, the first one, I already said it. It's my favorite game out of the trilogy. Unpopular opinion. I think a lot of people. I think the second one is, objectively better. Better graphics. Better ideas. But DK is my favorite character. Got to stick with the OG.
So, who would win in a fight? Donkey Kong or King K. Rool?
I mean, we've seen this happen. many times.
Do you have a better matchup? How about what's a Killer Instinct character?
What is it, Donkey Kong or
Gore?
somebody from Killer Instinct?
Yeah, full gore. DK versus full gore.
All right, give us the rundown, Bruno.
Man, I'm gonna go with DK. You know, just the nostalgia.
Wow,
factor.
versus full gore.
Even though Fulgore is my favorite fighter in KI, you know, Killer Instinct. So, yeah, just gotta go with the nostalgia.
The Donkey Kong month continues.
It's not
Next
Donkey
time
Kong month.
In Donkey Kong
It's
versus
not Donkey Kong month.
Moldor?
We didn't start Donkey Kong month. We're not ending a Donkey Kong month. It's
Moldor.
not Donkey Kong month.
Caldor.
So get your bananas.
Because we're coming for you.
We're like Gwen Stefani. This shit is bananas.
All right, see y'all next time.
See ya.
Hey y'all, don't forget to subscribe to them button mappers.